Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Hope everybody's doing fantastic out there in Miami Heat Nation. Appreciate you guys checking us on out. Hope you guys can subscribe. So, got a bit of a scare today in Heat Nation. Nikola Jović. Jovic, dude. Our sweet Nico. He's going off to Serbia to work out for the Olympics. And we got a scare from the Serbian media today because photos over here, as you can see, were released that had him not only in an air boot, walking boot thing, but he also had a scooter to keep his weight off of it. And I don't know about you guys, but the way that this season had gone for the Miami Heat, I am so done with injuries. I am done with guys being hurt and dealing with stuff. And to see Nico in that boot and scoot, a little boot scoot boogie to try and get through the Serbian airport, it just brought uneasy feelings. Now, thankfully, local reporters have said it's a minor left ankle sprain. Will be reevaluated in 2 weeks. The belief is he's going to be ready for the Olympics. Apparently, Serbian reports had said that he had been working out down here in Miami, that this had occurred. This is an over precaution for Nico. He is flying to Serbia, not a short flight. So, you're trying to prevent swelling and do what you can. They got to get him first class, right? He's a very tall individual. You got to get Nico the extra leg room. While I think he'd be okay, you don't want to be stuck on a middle aisle with Nikola Jović. He's got to get at least an exit aisle. I hope that the Serbian national team hooks it up and gives him some kind of extra space that goes on there. But yeah, there was no doubt. I saw that today, and I was like, my heart's kind of scared to be, because here's the thing: I'm doing the radio show, and this stuff happens, and people are like, Nico, walking boot, and I just go immediately, and so I have to run to my computer and look what's happening, and everything coming in drips and drabs. I have to go to Google Translate to translate Serbian to English to make sure that all this is okay. And yeah, it seems like it's going to be okay, but it's tough not to be nervous when everything that has gone down this season with Jimmy's knee and Tyler's ankle and Jaime's groin and everybody's at Duncan Robinson's back, Terry Rozier's neck, Bam's hip. Everybody's dealing with something. And then you finally all right, we're in the summer of getting better and feeling better and getting to a good spot, and boom, we have injury news. Even if it is minor, you could understand I'm already on edge. The Celtics are about to win the championship. I'm not a happy guy right now to see that the Heat's biggest rival is about to hoist Larry O'Brien, and I got to sit here worried about Nikola Jović, and I'm already in mock drafts. It's a depressing time. I'm not feeling fantastic about where things are right now. I want to just get to the off season and get into the midst of this thing. And seeing Nico like that, it made me nervous. It made me nervous. Speaking of Nico, here's an interesting thing that's been bantied about, by the way. Today, Bleacher Report dropped a mock draft. And Bleacher Report has at 15 the Miami Heat taking Nikola Topić, who is a young point guard prospect from Serbia. It's like the Dolphins. Here's what's going to happen: the Heat are going to do like the Dolphins did with Jalen's. Miami Heat are going to corner the market on Nikola's. That's what's going to be going down there. But Nikola Topić is a fascinating prospect who talked about this a little bit yesterday with the Devin Carter thing. I hadn't seen him really drop to a lot of I haven't seen him drop in a lot of mock drafts of the Miami Heat. I've been seeing this guy a top 10 prospect, but they put out a new mock draft today. This was Jonathan Wasserman, their draft dude. And here's what they got. They have 13, Khalil Ware, who we talked a little bit about on yesterday. They got Tristan Da Silva, who I got to look into more, but I've seen bantied about with the Heat a little bit. And then 15, Nikola Topić. Now, in their last mock draft, they had him going 11th. Very young, 18, going to be 19 in August, I believe. And this is what it says. His teams were informed of Nikola Topic's torn ACL at the NBA's Combine. Help for those who missed out in Chicago. This diagnosis obviously won't help teams who were previously on the fence. Teams are waiting for U.S. doctors to examine Topic's knee. Some have speculated that he may need surgery. The question is whether how much it will have an impact on how front offices value the 6'6" point guard. As long as they don't throw red flags as results and hit at long-term vulnerability, a lottery team may be willing to wait for the big playmaker who's had success at creating for teammates and attacking at pro leagues overseas. Yeah, fascinating guy, 6'6", does have negative wingspan, so that's like worse than Tyler Hero. So you wonder about, like, obviously usually defense comes up there, but physical player as far as, like, watching the highlights of him, a lot of people compare him to Goran Dragic, which for a guy who is a slick passer is interesting because, Gogi is known more as a score first point guard, but does, had some really nice passes in his own right, especially when he got down in the paint. But you could definitely see around the basket, you could see some of the things that Topic has that Goran does, that physical body, kind of scoring from all angles, using the shoulder, herky. I don't even want to say herky jerky, but it's like Gogi around that rim almost thrived with contact more than he did in open space. And so very, very interesting. And you look at the international product, like, this is a guy that it's interesting. It would be almost the opposite of what you had with Jaime last year, because you're thinking to yourself, all right, what kind of time do you have to develop this guy? What time would they put into it? Obviously, if he has an ACL injury, you're talking in the ilk of like a Chet Holmgren, a Joel Embiid, Blake Griffin, I guess Michael Porter Jr. These are the guys who have, like, you're basically redshirting. But the Heat essentially did that with Nikola Jović, where they did redshirt him, and they did go into a year where they just basically said, hey, you use this year to get stronger, you use this year for your body, and we'll cross all the other stuff when we get to it. But I do like the idea that Miami is getting mocked to more international players. I like the fact that Miami's kind of expanding their mind on things. And I do think that Jovic, Goran Dragic, what we've seen around the league of international players, Serbia's going to have a hell of a team. It's going to suck because I don't know if this kid's going to be able to play with dealing with his ACL and his draft status. I don't think anybody's going to let him play. But it is pretty cool to see. I think him and Jovic had even taken a picture earlier on in the year. So you'd imagine there's some kind of a relationship there, or some kind of a rapport there that would make a guy's transition to the NBA a little bit easier. But it's going to be that was kind of a cool thing to see, because I hadn't seen him mocked anywhere near. A lot of guys, everywhere I'd seen him, it had been basically like top 10, I think 8th by the Ringer. Lowest I saw him anywhere was like 12th by CBS. But most people had him a top 10 prospects. He's still ranked ESPN's 10th ranked overall prospect. But and they had wrote this. They had said that NBA teams' fears were realized when they revealed at the draft combine medical that Topic had a partially torn ACL. The extent of his recovery process will be determined by specialists in the U.S. But again, it will not be surprising if he has a redshirt season. So these are going to be the interesting things. Now, a lot of people and franchises like Portland, San Antonio, they may have more. I mean, what are they playing for anyway? So they may just look at it right away and say, hey, let's stash the prospect and go with talent, especially in a league where he's one of the younger guys out there. People aren't necessarily sure the top end talent. You're basically stashing them. And while you may not get any realization this year, you give him the year like the Heat did with Jovic to get him swolled up, to get him right and get him in a good place. You could see in a year he could be super valuable. And I don't even know in the reality of a Heat team and where they're at, what is their appetite for bringing in a guy like that. Now, the other thing that's interesting is, from a trade chip perspective, to look at it like this, is if he is available and people are just intrigued by the idea of him. That's another thing, is like, oh, you have this stud 6'6" young point guard who's going to bounce back. Then everybody can kind of look at it as, hey, you also have this super prospect that you can rise up. But I am curious, watching him play a little bit with the ball in his hands. How does he flourish on a team like this? Does he have to like run a bench unit off the bat? Does he have the ability to get the ball to veterans right away? Will they trust him like that? I don't know. And then you look at the Heat having a couple of bigs in Bam and Nikola Jović, who like the ball in their hands, will also get downhill, will also move. Is that an issue or is that a benefit? That's hard to say from the outset right here. But it was interesting to see that he is at least on the radar of one outlet to possibly fall to Miami.